Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome to our deep dive into the intricacies of Germany's relationship with Russia. You've expressed a desire to understand the nuances of this crucial relationship, particularly in light of recent global events.
It's a relationship that spans centuries, marked by a complex interplay of cooperation and conflict, and it's been profoundly shaped by historical events, economic interests, and geopolitical considerations.
To truly grasp its current state, we need to journey back in time and trace its evolution through the policies of Germany's last three chancellors,
Gerhard Schröder
Angela Merkel,
and Olaf Scholz.
and examine how each leader navigated this vital but often turbulent relationship. Our exploration will highlight the role of economic pragmatism, particularly in the energy sector, as a driving force in German decision-making, a factor that has created both opportunities and vulnerabilities.
So let's embark on this deep dive, starting with a historical overview to provide context for understanding the complexities that lie ahead.
The relationship between Germany and Russia has deep historical roots dating back to the early modern period.
In the 18th and 19th centuries, strong ties were forged through diplomatic partnerships and dynastic marriages. The Congress of Vienna in 1815, for example, demonstrated their shared interest in maintaining European stability following the Napoleonic Wars.
However, even during this period, an undercurrent of rivalry existed, as both nations sought to expand their influence in Eastern Europe.
Despite these tensions, trade and cultural exchanges flourished.
German intellectuals and artisans played a significant role in shaping Russian education and science, while Russian grain exports became crucial for Germany's growing industrial economy.
These early interactions laid the groundwork for a relationship characterized by interdependence, a theme that would persist throughout their shared history.
The two world wars, however, irrevocably altered the course of German-Russian relations. In World War I, they found themselves on opposing sides, a conflict that ultimately contributed to the collapse of the Russian Empire.
The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, signed in 1918, temporarily ceded vast territories from Russia to Germany, leaving a lasting impact on their relationship.
World War II brought further devastation. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939, a non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, initially aligned the two powers.
However, this pact proved to be short-lived, collapsing when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941. The invasion, known as Operation Barbarossa, marked the beginning of a brutal conflict on the Eastern Front, resulting in millions of casualties and leaving deep scars on both nations.
The aftermath of World War II led to the division of Germany.
West Germany aligned with NATO, while East Germany became a Soviet satellite state. The Berlin Wall, erected in 1961, served as a stark symbol of this ideological and physical division.
In the midst of the Cold War, Willy Brandt, Chancellor of West Germany from 1969 to 1974, initiated a policy known as Ostpolitik, or Eastern policy.
Ostpolitik sought to normalize relations with the Soviet Union and its satellite states through dialogue and economic cooperation.
This policy led to significant agreements, including the Moscow Treaty of 1970, which formally recognized post-World War II borders and aimed to reduce tensions between the two blocs. Crucially, Ostpolitik paved the way for long-term economic partnerships, particularly in the energy sector. Agreements were reached to supply Soviet natural gas to West Germany, establishing a foundation for the complex energy relationship that would continue to shape their interactions in the decades to come.
The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent reunification of Germany in 1990 ushered in a new era in German-Russian relations. Initially, there was hope for a reset, with German Chancellor Helmut Kohl working closely with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to ensure a peaceful reunification process.
Germany committed to supporting Russia's transition to a market economy, playing a key role in providing financial assistance.
However, the post-Cold War period also witnessed rising tensions, particularly as NATO expanded eastward, incorporating former Warsaw Pact countries.
While Germany supported NATO enlargement, it also sought to maintain a dialogue with Russia, recognizing its strategic importance. This delicate balancing act, navigating between commitments to NATO and a recognition of Russia's sensitivities, would become a recurring theme in German foreign policy.
Throughout this period, economic ties between Germany and Russia continued to deepen, particularly in the energy sector. Projects like the Nord Stream pipeline, designed to transport Russian natural gas directly to Germany via the Baltic Sea, symbolize this growing interdependence.
While offering economic benefits, these projects also raised concerns about potential vulnerabilities, a debate that would intensify in the years to come. Now let's delve into the period of Germany's last three chancellors, beginning with Gerhard Schröder, who served from 1998 to 2005.
His tenure was marked by a pragmatic approach to Russia, emphasizing economic cooperation and personal diplomacy.
How does Schröder's early political experiences and ideological leanings influence his later approach to Russia as chancellor?
Gerhard Schröder's early political career provides valuable insights into the development of his views on Russia. He began his journey within the Young Sozialisten, Jusos, the youth wing of the Social Democratic Party, SPD.
As a prominent JUSO leader in the 1970s, he advocated for nuclear disarmament and greater engagement with socialist states, including the Soviet Union. Schröder emphasized dialogue over confrontation, a theme that would later become central to his approach as chancellor.
While these early ideological leanings evolved over time, they undoubtedly shaped his later policies toward Russia.
As Chancellor, Schröder prioritized economic stability and Germany's role as a mediator in global affairs.
His approach to Russia reflected a belief in realpolitik, emphasizing practical engagement over ideological confrontation.
This pragmatic approach was clearly evident in his championing of the Nord Stream pipeline project, designed to transport Russian natural gas directly to Germany, bypassing traditional transit countries like Ukraine.
Schröder's advocacy for Nord Stream was fundamentally driven by economic considerations. Germany, with its powerful industrial sector, needed a reliable and cost-effective energy source, and Russia, with its vast natural gas reserves, presented itself as a natural partner. However, this decision also significantly increased Europe's reliance on Russian energy, a factor that would have profound geopolitical implications in the years to come.
Beyond economic considerations, Schröder cultivated a close personal relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Their rapport went beyond typical diplomatic interactions, facilitating closer ties between Germany and Russia. However, this personal connection also fueled criticism that Germany was becoming overly accommodating to Russian interests, overlooking potential concerns about Putin's increasingly authoritarian tendencies.
These criticisms intensified after Schröder left office in 2005, particularly when he accepted positions in Russian energy companies, including as chairman of the shareholders committee of Nord Stream AG. These roles were seen as a clear conflict of interest, undermining his legacy and raising questions about his motivations during his chancellorship.
Schröder's policies toward Russia, while driven by the desire to secure Germany's economic future, carried significant long-term risks.
The Nord Stream project, while economically beneficial in the short term, intensified Germany's reliance on Russian energy. This dependency would complicate Germany's ability to respond decisively to Russian aggression in the years to come.
Schröder's approach highlighted the inherent tension between short-term economic gains and long-term strategic stability. His legacy remains a subject of debate, a case study in the complexities of balancing economic pragmatism with geopolitical realities.
Following Schröder's tenure, Angela Merkel assumed the chancellorship of Germany, a position she held for 16 years, from 2005 to 2021. Her time in office coincided with significant geopolitical shifts and escalating tensions with Russia, demanding a recalibration of Germany's approach.
Merkel's leadership, while initially characterized by pragmatism and economic cooperation, evolved in response to Vladimir Putin's increasingly assertive foreign policies. Her handling of pivotal events like the 2008 NATO summit and the 2014 annexation of Crimea revealed a balancing act between maintaining dialogue with Russia and taking a firm stance against its actions. Given Merkel's upbringing in the German Democratic Republic, GDR, how did her personal experiences shape her approach to Russia during her chancellorship?
Merkel's upbringing in East Germany under Soviet dominance undoubtedly influenced her cautious approach to foreign policy. Having experienced authoritarianism and the geopolitical leverage wielded by Moscow firsthand, she developed a deep skepticism of Russia's intentions. This skepticism shaped her emphasis on careful diplomacy and a measured approach to relations with Russia. Despite the skepticism in the early years of her chancellorship, Merkel adopted a pragmatic stance, emphasizing economic ties and dialogue with Russia. Under her leadership, Germany's energy relationship with Russia continued to deepen, most notably through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project.
Nord Stream 2, an expansion of the existing Nord Stream pipeline, significantly enhanced Germany's access to Russian natural gas. However, it also escalated concerns among allies like the United States and Eastern European nations, who argued that it amplified Europe's dependency on Russia, potentially jeopardizing collective energy security. The project quickly became a focal point of geopolitical tensions, with critics arguing that it undermined efforts to deter Russian aggression and diminished Ukraine's role as a transit country for Russian gas.
Despite these criticisms, Merkel defended Nord Stream 2, presenting it as a purely economic endeavor aimed at ensuring a stable energy supply for Germany's industrial needs. The 2008 NATO summit in Bucharest proved to be a defining moment in Germany's approach to Russia.
At this summit, Merkel, alongside French President Nicolas Sarkozy, opposed then U.S. President George W. Bush's proposal to offer Ukraine and Georgia a Membership Action Plan, MAP, for NATO.
A Membership Action Plan is a program of advice, assistance, and practical support tailored to the individual needs of countries aspiring to join NATO. It helps them prepare for potential membership by outlining specific reforms and benchmarks they need to meet. Merkel's opposition to offering MAP to Ukraine and Georgia stemmed from several concerns.
She expressed skepticism about whether Ukraine and Georgia were truly ready to meet NATO standards for membership, citing issues related to governance and military reforms. However, her primary concern seemed to be the potential for provoking a hostile reaction from Russia. She worried that such a move could destabilize the region, a risk she was unwilling to take.
While her stance was rooted in a desire for cautious diplomacy, the decision had significant long-term consequences.
The perceived lack of Western unity emboldened Putin, contributing to Russia's military intervention in Georgia later that year, and arguably setting the stage for future actions, including the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
The summit highlighted Merkel's inclination towards cautious diplomacy over assertive action, a pattern that would persist throughout her tenure.
Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 marked a significant escalation of tensions with the West. How did Merkel respond to this crisis, and how did it shape her subsequent approach to Russia?
Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 marked a turning point in Merkel's approach to Russia. She emerged as a leading figure in the European Union's response, advocating for sanctions against Russia and supporting Ukraine's sovereignty.
Her efforts were instrumental in rallying EU member states to impose coordinated sanctions, a complex task given the varying levels of economic dependence on Russian energy within the bloc.
Despite her condemnation of Russia's actions, Merkel maintained open lines of communication with Putin, demonstrating her belief in the importance of diplomacy even in times of crisis. This dual approach, combining sanctions with dialogue, characterized Merkel's response to the crisis.
Her involvement in brokering the Minsk agreements, aimed at de-escalating the conflict in eastern Ukraine, further demonstrated her commitment to finding a diplomatic solution. However, the implementation of these agreements faced significant challenges, and the conflict continued to simmer. Throughout her tenure, Merkel grappled with the tension between Germany's economic dependence on Russian energy and its commitment to European security. Projects like Nord Stream 2 continued to draw criticism, particularly from Eastern European nations and the United States. They argued that the pipeline increased Europe's vulnerability to Russian influence and undermined efforts to diversify energy sources.
Despite these criticisms, Merkel insisted that Germany could effectively balance its economic interests with a firm stance on Russia's geopolitical actions. She believed that Germany could maintain a pragmatic approach to energy cooperation while simultaneously upholding its commitments to European security. Her leadership during this period underscored the complexities of managing a major industrial economy while navigating a deteriorating relationship with an increasingly assertive Russia. Her legacy on Russia is one of cautious leadership marked by both achievements in diplomacy and enduring questions about the long-term implications of her policies. In December 2021, Olaf Scholz became Chancellor of Germany, inheriting a geopolitical landscape significantly shaped by his predecessors.
How did Scholz's initial approach to Russia compare to those of Schröder and Merkel, particularly in the context of the already heightened tensions leading up to the 2022 invasion of Ukraine?
Scholz, leading a coalition government comprising the Social Democratic Party, SPD, the Greens, and the Free Democratic Party, FDP, initially appeared to follow in Merkel's footsteps, adopting a cautious and pragmatic approach to Russia. He emphasized dialogue and economic cooperation, signaling a degree of continuity in German foreign policy. However, the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 fundamentally altered the geopolitical calculus, forcing Scholz to confront a new set of challenges and make difficult decisions that would define his chancellorship.
The invasion marked a turning point in Scholz's foreign policy, encapsulated in his declaration of a Zeitenwende, a turning point for Germany.
In a landmark speech to the Bundestag, Scholz announced a historic increase in defense spending, including a $100 billion fund to modernize the German military. This declaration signaled a significant departure from Germany's traditionally cautious stance on defense, a stance that had been a source of tension with some NATO allies.
However, despite this rhetorical shift, Scholz's implementation of policies has been criticized for being slow and overly cautious, particularly in the early months of the conflict.
Germany's initial hesitance to provide heavy weaponry to Ukraine, for instance, drew criticism from NATO allies and Ukrainian leaders. While the government eventually approved arms deliveries, the delays fueled perceptions of indecision and raised questions about Germany's commitment to supporting Ukraine's defense. Scholz's tenure has been dominated by efforts to reduce Germany's reliance on Russian energy.
The suspension of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, a project championed by his predecessors, was a clear indication of this policy shift.
The suspension of Nord Stream 2 represented a symbolic break with the past acknowledging the strategic risks associated with Germany's energy dependency on Russia. Scholz has also accelerated Germany's transition toward renewable energy and sought to diversify gas supplies, recognizing the need to reduce reliance on a single, potentially unreliable supplier. These efforts, while demonstrating a commitment to energy independence, have also exposed Germany to new challenges. The transition away from Russian energy has been marked by logistical and economic hurdles, including soaring energy prices and difficulties in securing alternative suppliers and a volatile global market. Germany's role in providing military aid to Ukraine has been a particularly contentious aspect of Scholz's foreign policy.
His government initially faced intense criticism for its perceived reluctance to send heavy weaponry such as tanks and advanced missile systems to Ukraine. These criticisms, often voiced by NATO allies and Ukrainian officials, centered on the argument that Germany's hesitance was undermining Ukraine's ability to defend itself effectively.
Scholz, however, has defended his cautious approach, arguing that it reflects a responsible effort to avoid actions that could escalate the conflict. His government has gradually increased its military support for Ukraine, but its actions have often been perceived as reactive rather than proactive. Scholz's handling of the Russia-Ukraine war has been met with mixed reactions. While some have commended his efforts to balance Germany's domestic needs with its international obligations, others have argued that his hesitance has weakened Germany's leadership role in NATO and the EU. His tenure as chancellor continues to unfold amidst a pivotal moment in European history, and his leadership will undoubtedly be judged on his ability to navigate this complex and rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape.
Having examined the policies of Schröder, Merkel, and Scholz, what key themes and insights emerge from their approaches to Russia? What lessons can we glean from their experiences as we look ahead to the future of German-Russian relations?
The policies pursued by Schröder, Merkel, and Scholz towards Russia highlight both consistencies and shifts in Germany's approach, reflecting the country's complex considerations regarding economic priorities, historical ties, and evolving security concerns. A thematic analysis of their approaches reveals both areas of alignment and points of divergence, providing valuable insights into the evolution of Germany's foreign policy over the past 2 decades. One of the most prominent themes in Germany's relationship with Russia has been the pursuit of economic interdependence, particularly in the energy sector. Schröder's tenure marked a period of deepening economic partnership with Russia, most notably through the construction of the Nord Stream pipeline, which directly connected Russian natural gas supplies to Germany. This pipeline not only strengthened economic ties, but also became a source of tension within the European Union, particularly among Eastern European member states, who perceived it as undermining their own energy security and increasing Europe's reliance on Moscow. Merkel largely maintained this focus on energy cooperation with Russia, despite growing geopolitical tensions, as demonstrated by her support for the Nord Stream 2 project. However, the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine forced a significant reassessment of Germany's energy strategy. Scholz faced the consequences of this long-standing dependency and made the decision to suspend the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. He also initiated efforts to diversify Germany's gas supplies and accelerate the transition towards renewable energy sources. While Schröder and Merkel had prioritized stability and affordability in their energy policies, Scholz's tenure has highlighted the inherent risks of economic entanglement with authoritarian regimes. His actions underscore the need for Germany to balance its energy security with its geopolitical considerations.
Another key theme is the tension between cautious diplomacy and the need for assertive action.
While dialogue and pragmatism have been central to Germany's approach, the perceived lack of decisive action has at times emboldened Russia. Germany's role within NATO and the European Union has also been a persistent issue. Schröder's approach often prioritized bilateral ties with Russia at the expense of stronger alignment with NATO. Merkel played a more central role in coordinating European Union responses to Russian aggression, particularly during the Crimea crisis. However, her reluctance to fully embrace NATO expansion reflected a lingering cautious approach. Under Scholz, Germany's role in NATO and the EU has faced increased scrutiny. His initial hesitations to provide heavy weaponry to Ukraine and his reluctance to approve the use of German arms on Russian soil have led to perceptions of Germany as a hesitant leader within the alliance. Despite these criticisms, Scholz's decision to increase defense spending and provide military aid to Ukraine signals a potential shift towards a more assertive role for Germany. However, this role remains cautiously defined compared to the positions taken by other NATO members. The policies of Schröder, Merkel, and Scholz demonstrate the complexities of managing a major industrial economy while navigating a relationship with an increasingly assertive Russia. Their approaches reveal a delicate balancing act between economic pragmatism, historical ties, and evolving security concerns. As Germany navigates a rapidly changing global order, the legacies of Schröder, Merkel, and Scholz will continue to shape its foreign policy decisions. Their experiences offer valuable lessons about the importance of energy diversification, a more proactive approach to security, and a clear commitment to collective defense within NATO and the European Union. Germany's future relationship with Russia remains uncertain, but understanding the historical complexities and the policy choices made by its recent leaders is essential for interpreting current events and anticipating future challenges. This deep dive has provided valuable insights into the intricate dynamics of German-Russian relations. We encourage you to continue exploring this complex and ever-evolving relationship, considering the historical context, the economic and geopolitical factors at play, and the choices made by leaders on both sides. As you delve deeper, remember that history offers not just a record of the past, but also a framework for understanding the present and shaping the future.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.